You're listening to Sox in the Basement, a production of the Broadcast Basement Limited, where every show is 30 minutes of good and comes from a basement bar on the south side of Chicago. Pull up a stool, pour a cold one, and join us right now for Sox in the Basement. Heard everywhere podcasts can be found, and always at soxinthebasement.com. We're sitting there getting ready for this show, and we're both like saying over and over again, there's lots to talk about. Like, there's a lot to talk about when it comes to the White Sox today. A lot to talk about. But the first thing that I want to talk about is in response to several messages that I got off of the last show, or were left on voicemail through soxinthebasement.com, or were sent as messages through soxinthebasement.com, or on YouTube, or on social media. Chris, find something wrong with Chase Meidroth, and the answer is, I can't. He's good. Now, yes, he's only played in 3 games. He's 3 for 7 with 3 walks, 1 strikeout, hitting .429 with a 1029 OPS, and everything could change in a week or so. But this is why you bring up guys who are performing in the minors to replace guys who are not performing. Meanwhile, Andrew Vaughn is still hitting .113 now. Miguel Vargas hitting a whopping .148, and as we said on the last episode, that's his career. That's over hundreds upon hundreds, 600 or so at bats. That's what he is. And Luis Robert Jr. is not performing well either. And you have Tim Elko still down in the minor leagues, White Sox. If you're going to get this kind of output from Chase Meidroth, why aren't we interested in bringing Edgar Caro and his 15 for 46 down in Charlotte with his .326 batting average and his .861 OPS? A guy who we talked about in the offseason sounded like he was told he was going to be part of this team. He was talking in terms of, we're going to do this in 25 at the major league level. What else does he have to do? If Teal needs work and he's dropped off a little bit, fine. We didn't expect him this year. But Carroll was the guy that you expected had a chance to make the team. What are you doing, and why are you wasting time? Tim Elko should have been the first baseman this year. You should have saved $6 million on Andrew Vaughn and not offered arbitration to a guy who's worth a third of it based upon his wins above replacement over the last couple of years. And Elko could have started off the season and done better than 113 or whatever. What is that? Is that what it was? I read it. I almost threw up in my mouth. And 113 he's hitting. 113.
113 with his slugging percentage is .208. His on-base percentage is .175.
He should never have been offered arbitration. We weren't the only people who said it. James Fox said it from Future Sox, talking about what they had in the minors, and Tim Elko, and specifically told us on this show on more than one occasion, I'd rather have Elko come up, who, by the way, is 15 for 41 in Charlotte, hitting .366 with a .923 OPS. Your team can't win a game, and you're so stubbornly stuck on Andrew Vaughn, who has shown you what he is. What is the point? And Fox, by the way, will be joining you for the next 2 episodes here on Sox in the Basement. They'll be audio-only episodes because I do all the video production, and I'm going to an island to forget about the White Sox for a while. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to forget about a lot of stuff. I've done like 9 or 10 podcasts in the last 4 or 5 days that all release while I'm on vacation because the business still has to run, right? Like, I've done so much, and like there's a clock on me today. Because I told myself by 9 o'clock on Tuesday, this comes out on Wednesday, but by 9 o'clock on Tuesday, everything gets shut off. I've already put the automatic reply thing that says I'm not working on my email if somebody reaches out to me today, and I'm done. So this may be audio as well. The last thing that I'm going to do today will be do the video portion of this show, and if I run out of time, it's just an audio show. I apologize. I'll be back. There'll be 3 audio episodes then in total, 2 with Fox, and then I'll be back and everything will be back to normal. But Tim Elko should be here by the time I get back from the islands. Edgar Caro should be here by the time I'm coming back with a nice tan. They should be here now, Ed.
I mean, there's very little excuse for it when you look at what's on the major league roster. You just, even Andre Lipschitz, who I understand is not on the 40-man roster, but I mean, you've got plenty of guys you can jettison into the sun here.
Get rid of Jacob Amaya or one of the many other people. Whoever he comes and replaces, get rid of that guy. Bring him up too.
Jacob Amaya is hitting .114. Andrew Vaughn went 0 for the Red Sox series until his last at bat. He did nothing that entire. Even when everybody else was getting hits. They're just blowing the Red Sox out in the first game there, and Vaughn is the only one not contributing anything other than strikeouts in that game. Even Amaya was doing something in that game, but it's just you got to at some point just sit there and say, what are we building around? Okay,
not him.
And I understand you give. I understand you give Luis Robert Jr. as much leash as you can because of the amount of money that he is owed and the tools he has and the promise he has shown and the fact that you are trying desperately to get some value back from him. And we can talk about him.
We're going to get into him. Too. We're going to get into this ridiculous trade rumor that is just. I mean, this is such a. Chris Guess is starting to have a type of trade, bad ones, and this would be a bad one as well. But go ahead, finish your thought.
But I mean, when you look at what Chase Meidroth came up and did, okay, and it's in keeping with what his minor league statistics showed him to be. He's a patient guy, okay? He's got more walks than strikeouts. He's got 3 walks to 1 K in the major league so far. Remember, this is a guy making his debut. This is not some retread. He's put the ball in play. He has contributed to this team very well offensively, even if he is not hitting home runs, even if he's never going to be that. He's a guy that came in and is doing what we kind of expected him to do. Will he cool off? 100%. Is he going to strike out more than once? Absolutely.
Is he a major league starter? Yes.
I think he's a major league starter.
I think he's a major league starter.
Your middle infield right now should be Brooks Baldwin and Chase Meidroth, unless you're playing Baldwin in the outfield.
Or Andre Lipschitz comes up. And I'm okay, honestly, with Brooks Baldwin playing right field because I don't need to see anything else from Josh Palacios or Greg Jones. Thank you very little. You guys, it was nice of you to show up for one series, but you shouldn't be here either. You're talking about Chase Meidroth and how he was getting on base and how he was taking pitches and how he was getting walks, right? And down in AAA, he went out and got 8 of them before they brought him up. He had a .450 on base percentage. You know who else is doing that right now? Edgar Caro, who has 11 walks and a .448 on base percentage. He's doing the same thing, selective with his pitches and hitting 366. 366 is Elko. They're right next to each other on my sheet here in front of me. 326. Okay. I don't understand what you're doing with your roster. This is foolish. It's dumb. I don't want to do the whole show on it because it feels like I don't want to be a broken record about this. But Tim Elko and Edgar Caro should be on this team. Chase Meidroth, play him every damn day. Andre Lipschitz, add him to the 40-man. You got enough garbage you can get rid of. You have to start holding players accountable. One move is not enough. The move that concerns me the most, Ed, is this ridiculous one that is floating about. The possible move of Luis Robert Jr. to the Dodgers. It's almost as if the matrix that I am trapped within. It's making fun of me now.
We weren't going to say anything, but you should have taken the other pill.
I'm clearly in a simulation because I just talked about how bad Getz is with his trades and how you don't trade with the Dodgers because they're a professional organization that evaluates talent properly. And then it comes out that they've tabled discussions for now, but we're seriously talking about James Outman of the Dodgers coming to the White Sox for Luis Robert Jr. Now, I want to get into how ridiculous this is. Before I do, for exterior windows, doors, patio doors, and storm doors, look no further than Window and Door Superstore of Oak Forest. No high-pressure sales, not in your kitchen. You're in the showroom. Full examples, all the glass designs, all the little knobs and doodads there. You get to see them in person. Ask your questions to one of the owners in showroom. There's also one on site when they install with all their own installers. They do not farm out the work. They've been doing it that way in Oak Forest since 1985. All major brands, custom made, no stock items. That way you get a perfect fit. Window and Door Superstore of Oak Forest, half block east of 159th and Ridgeland at 6280 159th Street. See more at windowdooroakforest.com. James Outman is 28 years old.
He's bad.
The player they were supposedly picking up in this deal that was close with the Dodgers is a 28-year-old AAA outfielder. A 28-year-old AAA outfielder who has accomplished very little in 632 official at-bats and his major league number, 739 plate appearances. So they know what he is. The Dodgers know what he is. They know what he is. He was up in the majors in 22, in 23, He was up in the majors in 24. In 23, he played in 151 games.
He was their starting center fielder. This was a guy that the Dodgers gave a full season to sit here and say, be our starting center fielder now and for the future. Okay. And what did he do? He delivered a 248 average, a 790 OPS. He struck out more than he should have. Okay. And he plays good. He's a good defender. That's what I understand about him. But he couldn't do it in 24. He only hit 147. He K'd all the time. It was always precarious with him.
He was only worth a couple of wins above replacement that season. Overall, with 3 seasons under his belt, 1 full and 2 partial, 3.4 wins above replacement B-WAR, Baseball Reference WAR, which is better than Miguel Vargas and better than Andrew Vaughn.
That's sad.
Which is really sad. So maybe that's the problem. Maybe James Outman looks good when you got garbage on your team like Vargas and Vaughn that you think looks good. Like, I don't understand this, because anybody else would say, why would you trade even a poorly performing Luis Robert Jr. for a guy that you already know sucks, that is a replacement level player that the Los Angeles Dodgers evaluated, just like with Vargas. They gave Vargas 81 straight games at second base and 600 plate appearances in his career, I think, with them. And they had a couple of looks at him, and they decided he wasn't worth playing on their team, so they offloaded him to the White Sox. And so now they're going to get Luis Robert Jr., who you've been holding out and holding on to forever for the perfect deal, turning down better offers, according to reports, and they're going to give you James Outman, 28-year-old AAA outfielder who had his shot in the majors and failed and did not make the team this year out of spring training. That's the guy? Table the discussion. The article needs to read, was laughed out of the room. There was a discussion over this? See, this is the problem. The Dodgers are snake oil salesmen. They could sell ice cream to Eskimos. And Chris Getz is gullible if he's even thinking about this deal. Oh, if you do this, and he's got a little hitch in his giddy up, and if you could just change this and do this, we're really confident over here in Los Angeles that he's going to be one hell of a player. And Luis Robert Jr.
Why isn't he doing that now? Then that's the problem. Why is Andy Pages, who by the way is absolutely terrible in the major leagues right now, and is in danger of being replaced with Tommy Edman of all guys as the starting center fielder for the Dodgers? Outman can't even play Pages, and he's not hitting either. And it's one of those things where there's certain times when you look at a guy and you sit there and go, okay, if James Outman's 23 years old and he comes up when he's 21, all right, and you sit there and you go, maybe he was overmatched. You might be able to sit there and say there's another gear, but at 28 years old, no, he's in his prime. He's 28. This is as good as it gets physically for most baseball players.
He's 28. He's in Oklahoma City. He's worse than Miguel Vargas and Andrew Vaughn. Just based upon his age and where he's at right now in his career, he's worse than those two guys. And those two guys don't belong on your team.
He's hitting 159 this year.
He is. He's hitting 159 in AAA.
In AAA. And the guy's got...
He's the key piece in the Luis Robert Jr. proposal from the Dodgers.
Oh, my God.
Who somehow convinced the world that all their prospects are great. You said it on the last episode. They're not. But Chris Getz believes it. Chris Getz is down there at Camelback. And they must take Getzy out to the field and be like, see this guy here? This is the best kept secret in the world. We would hate to part with this James Outman guy, just like we really didn't want to let go of Miguel Vargas. But I got to tell you something. We might give you Outman here for, Robert Jr. We'd be giving up a lot. You want another drink? Like, what is going on over there at Camelback Ranch? Are they drugging him? Do they have his family under lock and key?
They must.
Are there naked pictures of Getz that were taken inside of some place doing something god awful and the Dodgers have it? Like, what are we doing here? I never want to hear Chris Getz discussing a trade with the Los Angeles Dodgers ever again. I don't. Because whatever the return is, he is going to get absolutely fleeced. Don't talk to them, Getzy. Stay away from them. They're bad for you. You should have that same little voice in your head when you talk to the girl that you know is trouble. You should have that as well. I don't know. Looks like fun, but I'm going to get burned. Right? You start listening to that little voice in your head there, Getzy.
If you're wondering, if you're out there thinking about what makes for a good prospect or a bad prospect, there's certain things you can look at, right?
Youth, potential.
youth and potential are starters.
A lack of proof that he sucks. Like he's never been to the majors before and proven over 700 some plate appearances that he's not good.
Right. You look at that and certain characteristics of a guy, right? Like James Outman strikes out. I mentioned he strikes out way too much. Okay. In his major league career, it's like 33% K rate. That's a third of the time he swings and misses. He hit 23 home runs, I think it was, 28 home runs, maybe 23 home runs in that full season with the Dodgers. Okay. So that's not a power hitter, right? That's not a guy that's going to provide massive thump in the middle of your lineup. Tim Elko is also striking out over 30% right now at AAA Charlotte. However, we know Tim Elko is strong and he can hit home runs. You know, he may not be hitting a ton of them right now, but he hasn't played a whole lot of games at the moment. And you know, given an opportunity, you look at Tim Elko and you sit there and you say, okay, well, if he comes up here and he provides more power than Andrew Vaughn, if he can provide more than, you know, anything else in the lineup, you take it.
Do you think Tim Elko would be better or worse than hitting 113 with a 383 OPS? Do you think that he'll be worse than that? Is that possible to be worse than that?
No, I don't think it's.
He should be here. He should be here. Okay, and if you're not ready for Caro to catch yet, bring him up here and let him be a designated hitter because you got a lot of crap out there on that field.
And you know, we talked about Edgar Caro, you know, as well. You have Omar Narvaez who came up, and you know, Narvaez had a nice series against the Red Sox, and
yeah, but he's not part of the plan.
But he's not part of the future plans.
I don't care what he does.
Exactly. It's one of those things where you sit there and you go, but Edgar Caro could be backing up Matt Thies, and Edgar Caro could be stepping in at DH. And you got to convince me that there's something about first base that Edgar Caro is incapable of playing it. I mean, you had no problem starting Lenine Sosa over there, so you can't tell me that it's a position. You got no problem starting Andrew Vaughn over there. It's not like he's a defensive wizard.
You could keep Narvaez. This team is so bad. You can keep Narvaez and Thies and Caro all on the same roster, and you could have Caro catch once a week on Sundays, and then work in as a DH and maybe stand at first base and get him in the lineup and just work on the bat. So many teams have done that. So many teams take really good catchers down the minor leagues and start them in the outfield. Look no further than Contreras up in Milwaukee. When he started in Atlanta, they just put him in the outfield and got him used to it. A lot of teams do this with their catchers.
Yeah, we talked about Yanier Diaz for the Astros. It's the same way.
I thought it was going to be different. I thought that the new front office was going to look at baseball the way that the intelligent front offices in baseball look at it. And I don't see enough of a difference in this front office. I still see this inability to just lean into the things that are good. You know, you got a kid that played really well at every level of the minor leagues. He was acquired in a deal. I know it's before Getz' time, but it's right before he comes in. That was a good deal. That deal.
Well, and Getz is part of the front office there
right,
still too.
But the deal for Caro is a better deal than any of Getz' deals. So, like I hated Rick Hahn when he was out there trading, but Chris Getz makes me even more nervous. James Outman. Please let that be just some garbage that got released that isn't real. Caro has moved up level upon level and performed. Everybody thought the smart money was that he was going to get an opportunity before the Teal deal, which is probably the only deal that may turn out to be a really good one for Getz. And he was trading away. It's just like when Hahn was trading away guys that were superstars. Well, yeah, I mean, you should get something back for that. And Hahn failed at that. But before the Teal deal, Caro was going to be the catcher of the future, and he was the guy that sounded like he could be catching as soon as breaking camp. And then somehow Teal got added, and it doesn't seem to matter what Edgar Caro does. And I'm confused by the whole thing. This has to be the next guy that gets to the majors. He has to be. He has to be the next guy that gets to the major leagues. I'm trying to will it into existence, right? I said Meidroth has to be up here now, and then he was up within 24 hours. I said don't ever trade with the Dodgers again, and now all of a sudden we're thinking about trading with the Dodgers. I'm telling you, it's simulation. Whatever gets said on this show, either the exact opposite happens or we're able to speak it into existence. Just depends on how the program is running that day.
Well, then let's hedge our bets, okay? So you're saying Edgar Caro needs to be up right away. I'll say Edgar Caro should never come up.
All right.
Yeah, just no more Jacob Amaya, and really honestly, no more Andrew Vaughn.
Sox in the Basement listeners trying to make the most of your money, give a call to Tom Walsh, your Edward Jones financial advisor. Located on the corner of 111th and Kedzie, but serving the Chicagoland area, Tom has a get-to-know-you approach and a do-the-right-thing attitude. He's been doing this for decades. It's all about knowing your options when you're investing and planning for your retirement. No matter what stage you are at, it costs nothing to check in with Tom. Give Tom Walsh, your Edward Jones financial advisor, a call today, 773-779-0023. Edward Jones, member SIPC. There's a story out reported on 670 The Score by Matt Spiegel about the ownership of the White Sox that came out recently. We haven't talked about it yet. But he was reporting they had a breakdown of how the team was divided up. Here's the funny thing. We said we thought Reinsdorf had about 20% based upon previous reports. And he confirmed Jerry Reinsdorf has 20%. We knew there were a bunch of limited partners. Turns out they have 15%. Justin and Matt Ishbias, I got to get their name right. They're going to be owning the team soon. They have 35% now. Remember, they walked out of the chance to own a team outright in Minnesota. So they must feel like eventually they're going to get the White Sox. The other 30%, which none of us knew, I didn't know, is controlled by a fund run by Michael and Jonathan Reinsdorf. So the Reinsdorf family has half the team. That's the pulling back of the curtain if that is true. The Reinsdorf family has half the team. The other half of the team is the Ishbias and 8 or so limited partners combining for the other 50%. 35% with the people that we expect to eventually get the team, because why would they grab up all of this team? Why would they continue to invest into it if they didn't think they were eventually going to get the team? It's as if they're putting themselves in the best position possible to be able to acquire the majority when Jerry Reinsdorf passes from this earth. Because remember, he always told his kids, sell the White Sox, keep the Bulls. So you would assume Reinsdorf leaves his 20% to Michael and Jonathan. They have 50%. They sell it. That's what you would think looking at that. Unless, Ed, and here's my crackpot theory of the week. Jerry Reinsdorf bought a Major League Baseball team, and he seems to be a guy who is always looking for the angle business-wise. Is it possible that even 1% of his 20% is on loan from somebody else? That if he dies, part of it passes back to somebody else? Some family, somebody that he was in partnership early on.
So you think maybe he's retained like,
where if he dies, he wouldn't have 50 because some of it would go back to somebody else. And if Justin and Matt Ishbias could get the rest of it, they would have majority control. That's a weird gamble, though, for billionaires to do. We've talked about that. Billionaires make really good decisions, and I still don't understand why they dropped out of having the Minnesota Twins if they really want to have a sports franchise. So I still believe eventually they're going to be the owners, because it wouldn't make any sense to keep buying up parts of the White Sox. Am I wrong here? Like, if I'm trying to think, you're a billionaire, you made your money because you were smart at this, you get all the angles, you get to go to the special clubs in the island where you hunt the most dangerous game, human beings most likely. I would imagine.
Oh, is that the island you're going to?
I would think all the billionaires they go to an island like that at least once a year to just hunt people. That's how I think the billionaires live.
We have no reason to think otherwise this point. So.
These are my beliefs. My belief about billionaires is that there's some really crazy stuff going on that we're just never going to know about. But they're part of that club. I don't see how billionaires turn down getting their own Major League Baseball team if they don't think they're getting this one. I still go back to that even with this breakdown.
Yeah, I don't think Jerry has control over somebody else's shares. I don't think that that's how it's working. I think I believe that the breakdown makes sense, that there's 50% within the Reinsdorf family, and then other limited partners now, including the Ishbias, make up the other 50%. And, Jerry then, as maybe the largest individual owner, I mean, if everybody else is sort of split, that's how he sort of retains that chairman of the board situation, which we've talked about this. It's all corporate stuff. And the thing that we don't know is exactly what you said. What exactly happens to Jerry's shares when he passes? Do they go into that fund owned by his family, or do they revert outright, are they available for the rest of the partnership to purchase? As sometimes corporations will do. They want to keep it in-house. They don't want it spreading out to more heirs and things like that, or being subject to probate. So
the fund is an interesting thing because it's not owned by the two of them. It's owned by the fund, right? The other thing that's been reported, and Bob Nightingale's gotten in on this as well, is the idea that Reinsdorf, even with his 20%, he controls the team because of the initial setup. And we've talked about that. If he controls it because of the initial setup and contractually will always be the owner as long as he's alive, when he dies, it would be whoever has the most shares. And do they have all the votes because they control the fund? Or do the people in the fund have the votes? So I don't know how the fund is structured. The fund thing throws me off. I don't get funds. Do you get funds? I don't get funds.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, it's.
I'm a poor guy, lives in the South Side. Podcast from his bar. This is above my head.
It's one of those things where they don't. Yeah, you're right. They don't own it outright, and so it's not necessarily their votes. It's what happens to be voted on behalf of the fund. And since we don't know the makeup of it, we don't know if it's just controlled by them, but it stretches out to other family members. It stretches out to, other people who are bought into that fund. We don't really know how many cooks are in the kitchen right now for sure. So what ends up happening though is if that fund is also going to get sold out, or if the Ishbias decide that they are going to make an offer for that fund upon Jerry's passing and they make their move, one way or the other, I think what we're looking at is we're set up already with two guys who are coming in who already own other sports franchises, who, like you said, gave up the opportunity to just outright own the Minnesota Twins. And they've got to believe, based on how the corporate structure works, that they've got at least more than a puncher's chance at pulling control of the team, if not owning it outright, because the other X factor there is that there's other limited partners who may look at this and they may be in it because they feel like Jerry's going to take care of them, but they may not want to be financially tied to the White Sox under new ownership or under new leadership.
Oh, I would want to be financially tied to the White Sox because the new owners can't do as bad as this guy. That's the thing. The new owner is going to come in and make everybody a lot more money because they know how to run successful sports franchises. Like that,
which I think some people in Arizona would probably disagree, but then again, they also own the Phoenix Coyotes and WNBA.
Everything's better than the White Sox. Everything.
Yeah,
maybe they'll drive the White Sox.
Really matter.
You can't drive something that's already driven into the ground further into the ground, can you? I'll take anything.
Well, at some point, it comes out the other end, right? I mean,
yeah, that's all we have hope for. Look, I never thought that Reinsdorf was selling. I always thought that was just clickbait when people were doing that.
Well,
I always said he wasn't going to sell. You have to wait for him to die. Now, he's not going to live forever. I'm telling you right now, 5 years. 5 years or so. Maybe 7. That's what I would think. Looking at his age, looking at what he looks like. He's not going to be Virginia McCaskey. So at some point, the majority of us are going to get to see who owns this team next. These guys seem set up to be able to own the team. Jerry's not selling it, but I don't know if his kids keep it. That would kind of fly in the face of everything that they've already said. Unless they're basically like, you know what? We're keeping it because we hate those podcasts that always said we're waiting for Dad to die, so we're keeping it. That's the only reason why I think they keep the White Sox. It's the only reason. I don't think there's a Rocky Wirtz in there, though. I don't think Michael or Jonathan are Rocky. I just don't think that's what we got there. I'd be shocked.
No, well, and if I believe it's Michael that runs the Bulls, right? Just look at what's going on at the United Center and tell me that the Bulls have been really, really well run since the 90s. Since they lost the Golden Goose when they let Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen go. Tell me that Michael Reinsdorf has done a whiz-bang job over there. And you can't really say that. I mean, they were living off of Jordan's legacy for so many years. And then, you follow them and they've had a few good bumps and runs there along the line, but I don't think they're going to be that much better. But they can't be worse. Nobody could be worse than the current situation.
No, these things are so far off into the future. Focus on the things in the now. Bring up Edgar Caro, bring up Tim Elko, and start holding players accountable. I'm still waiting.
Sox in the basement. Sox in the basement. Sox in the basement.
Sox in the Basement. Heard everywhere podcasts can be found, and always on soxinthebasement.com.